WBUZ and change your life today.
Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9. The Fan.
30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. It's the George Plaster Show, featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famers Kelly Holcomb and young gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. It is a cloudy, overcast Wednesday, and I think all of you know, because we've been hearing it for about 3 days now, that it's going to be crazy around here for the next 2 or 3 days. So with that in mind, if you're out and about when the bad stuff hits, drive carefully, slow it down a little bit, because it does sound like some bad stuff's coming, and I don't know when I've ever heard the weather people as early and as definitive as they seem to be. There's my little weather update. Let's go to Murfreesboro and say hello to Kelly Holcomb. Kelly, how are you?
I'm great, George. I'm a lot better now.
Well, that's wonderful.
I've got the weather report from George Plaster.
Yes.
I think you missed your calling. I really do. I think you should have been a meteorologist. You don't have to be right.
On something. Yeah, you might be on something.
Yeah, you don't have to be right to have a job.
Well, thanks. However, it sure doesn't feel like they're going to be wrong on this.
Yeah, it's kind of dicey outside. It's warm and the wind's blowing hard, and when the sun comes out, it heats everything up. And I don't know. I just hope everybody's okay and safe.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a good show in spite of the dreary weather. Billy, tell me that you have an update. Whipstons.
We've got a good update today. I think you're going to like today's update.
Really?
Well, not one of the pieces, because there's a struggling baseball team south of us.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
And not even just struggling. There might be some real issues there, and we'll get to that.
Oh, there are some real issues. I mean, look, when you make no effort to improve your team in the offseason,
this is what you get.
This is what you get. And this is Liberty Media. I think for a couple, 3 years, Alex Anthopoulos worked miracles around it. Liberty Media doesn't care. And the best thing that could happen for an Atlanta Braves fan is for them to get the hell out of Dodge.
We will talk more Braves.
Hold on a second. Billy, why don't you give them your signal and then I'll give them mine? Mine is out. Get out.
That was as definitive as you've been in a while on something.
If you're not prepared to help us, get out.
Well, Lori Burnett Leland is prepared to help you with everything. MortgageLadyUSA.com. Give her a call, 615-969-4350. We start with the Chattanooga Mockingbirds, apparently, according to Kelly Holcomb. Apparently,
it's not according to me. That's what they're called. You saw the Mockingbird last night, because I know you watched the game.
Their mascot is a mockingbird, but the mock is short for moccasins.
I'm just telling you, their deal is mockingbirds now, bruh.
So
it's like I always thought when it said mocks that it was the moccasins of Moccasin Ben. I always thought that, and then it's a mockingbird.
We need to have somebody on from Chattanooga to set this straight, because
really,
it's changed.
I mean, we need an investigation on this.
I mean, look, I don't mean to be ugly, but by the time you get to their campus, you've sat in traffic for 45 minutes going, why the hell isn't anything moving?
In Mont Eagle on the mountains.
Oh, my goodness. It's like an obstacle course to get to Atlanta.
But they got a win last night over Loyola Chicago, which is a pretty good game. Not the best,
really good win.
Not the best crowd.
No, it was not.
But a good game, and UC Irvine beat North Texas by 2. So Chattanooga and UC Irvine will meet tomorrow night at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Tickets as low as $4.
look, let's be honest. There aren't any big names.
Yeah, this is not the best Final Four. I don't think this is what the NIT had drawn up when they selected this field.
No, and in the end, they'll probably be able to blame Fox, who put together this other tournament. Not that anybody cares about the other tournament, but they got all the bigger names. They got the Nebraskas, the Arizona States, the DePauls,
Villanova,
Colorado.
Is that tournament in Las Vegas, George?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Crown is at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Last night in the tournament, Cincinnati takes down DePaul. UCF beats Oregon State, which is a good game. Villanova beat Colorado. USC beat Tulane. So yeah, that field's a little bit better than the NIT.
Yeah, and look, the NIT is going to have to figure this out, and I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure Fox has enjoyed the fact that the NIT is ESPN's property. And so last night, ESPN's got 5 hours of showing us empty seats.
Yeah, so isn't this an ESPN problem? Because Fox ponied up the money for this field, right?
I guess so. I don't really know how they put the thing together. I do think it's weird, if we're being honest, that a lot of these teams have, not played in, a week and a half, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's weird.
I can't help but think about our man Jack Gold. I know he's thrilled. I wonder if he's going up there tomorrow for the Mockingbirds. Apparently.
Hey, run through this a minute. This is some fairly significant weather.
Seth on YouTube chimes in and says, George, my small town Pulaski, Tennessee is under tornado warning and hail is hitting my house, but my basement doesn't have Wi-Fi. Should I stay in my living room and keep watching? I'm guessing he's referring to the show.
Let me put it this way, Seth. I'd love to tell you that whatever we're going to do today is vitally important to your health. It isn't.
But it's not. Go to the basement.
Go to if you're in danger, bag us, show us the door.
Go to the basement.
Go to the basement.
Get out of your living room.
But for God's sakes, the minute you can get back to us, your being with us could double the audience. Who knows? I don't mean to make light, because this is, when you hear the word tornado warning, that's serious.
Well, Kelly's right. It looks like, and there's Jack Gold commenting on the mocks there.
Mocks, baby.
But it does look ugly right now. I mean, it looks like there's a storm of brewing.
Yeah.
Also, we'll see what happens with the National Player of the Year. Cooper Flagg and Janai Broome headline the Wooden Award finalists. No surprise. Also, Walter Clayton Jr., Mark Sears, and Braden Smith round out the 5 finalists.
Okay, tell me you have way better stuff than this. Because so far...
But there's no comment there. I think Flagg's going to win it, or I think Broome's going to win it.
I think Flagg's going to win it.
Too. I think he's a better player.
Okay. Thank you for the commentary there.
Well, no, what I mean is this sort of seems like...
It's 3:09. Do I usually end the update at 3:09?
No, but it seems like we're just reviewing last night's activities. It seems like the
update's not over yet, George.
Yeah, but that's why Seth's going to the basement, because he's like, the update's boring.
No, because Seth's about to get a hail through his window.
That too.
Seth is trying to run from a tornado, fellas.
I know. We shouldn't laugh.
The Padres and Jackson Merrill have agreed to a 9-year, $135 million contract extension. That's a lot of money.
Well, first of all, Jackson Merrill is a stud.
He is.
He is really a good player. And God knows that my team knows it, because we lost 4 in a row to them to start the season.
When is this stuff ever going to stop with the money is getting out of control?
That's what I keep saying.
I mean, $765 million. You got when is it going to stop? Somebody's going to get $1 billion contract. It's coming.
Kelly, I don't know. I mean, I've always thought that there was a tipping point, a breaking point. I don't know when it is or what it is, but it sure feels like we're close. Close.
Well, we're close to this being a ride on the Hindenburg in Atlanta. The Braves lose 3-1 to the Dodgers last night. Mookie Betts, 2-run homer in the sixth off of Chris Sale. A few stats. The Braves have only scored 9 runs in their first 6 games.
I'm aware.
They are 1 for 34 with runners in scoring position.
I'm aware.
And after the game, Snitker said, I can't explain it. I'm sure they're pressing right now.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, you're a professional. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Honestly, as somebody who watches religiously, they look dead.
They look lifeless.
They look like the Preds.
Would this be
really, George?
If the Braves stink it up? Would this be the first time the Titans, Preds, and Braves went back to back to back in stinkers in your lifetime of season?
I don't know.
This bad?
Yeah, probably. Let me say this: that little performance the Preds put on last night in Columbus, 8 goals to them. Are you friggin' kidding me? 8. Ocho.
Man, that's bad.
Show some pride.
Hey, that's done, man. They're just ready for the season to be over.
Look,
They're going through the motions.
They've been ready for this season to be over since Thanksgiving, and that is part of the problem. And, you hope the Braves don't end up like this where, April 15th not only is tax day, but the day that the Preds, the Braves officially get eliminated. I laughed my butt off last week when the paper put out the Preds have been mathematically eliminated. Really? They were mathematically eliminated when the woman finished singing "In the Home of the Brave." I mean, really?
Lord, you're on something, brother. I like it. Keep going.
I'm not a happy camper today. Well, I mean, look, under the do you keep Andrew Brunette?
Yeah, can the end of this season change that?
I don't know, but last night, if Barry Trotz had walked in last night and fired him, could you blame him?
No.
8 goals to Columbus?
That's why I asked Victoria that yesterday. Like, how are you going to get free agents to come in here? I know money talks, but I think she was right with what she said. I think the NHL is not – it's unlike any other professional sport. I think these guys want to win. They want to get paid, but they want to win. And I just what are you going to do to change? If you keep Andrew Burnett, you got to have an overhaul of that roster, in my opinion.
Going to have to overhaul something. Are you going to continue to give us Brave stats?
No more Brave stats.
Hey, he's got the red. He's got the red. You know what, Billy? When you start reading that off, I love it.
The red shirt.
No, George. This is the last thing George needed: an 0-6 start to the Brave season. But
dreadful.
It's not the last thing Ole Miss fans needed today. They got some good news on the Chris Beard front. According to Jeff Goodman and On3 Sports, Beard is staying in Oxford, and sources say that Ole Miss offered him a significant boost in salary and NIL money.
To me, when he didn't take the Indiana job, and I don't know if it was offered or not offered, to me, that was an obvious that Indiana should have gone after him. When whatever happened that didn't have him at Indiana, that's when I kind of said he's staying for a while.
And I know I've asked this, but do you think Indiana can get back to the heyday of old, George?
I do, but it's a different deal.
You talk about toxic fan bases. This Indiana, I've watched a lot of interviews and just learning about why they've fallen so far, and a lot of people are comparing it to kind of the fall of Tennessee. With their, they had 3 different coaches in 5-6 years, and a lot of it was, their fans are toxic, and that it's not a pretty sight right now with Indiana basketball fans. Well, and what they did to players, the DMs, and I mean,
what it really shows, Billy, is the level of control and power that Bobby Knight had over it.
Yep.
Yeah. For a long time.
All right, last thing here. This is probably a topic for another segment, definitely in the offseason. But Georgia coach Kirby Smart made some comments yesterday to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And, of course, April 7th, here in almost a week, there's a big ruling coming down. And Kirby said, everybody's on pins and needles because we don't know exactly what's going to come out of this. He said, I mean, it could be one of the most legendary moments in all of college sports with what's coming up in this ruling and how people are going to try to manipulate a cap when all we're trying to do is make for competitive balance. And it's really unfortunate. I don't know if competitive balance is going to come out of this. So, but that's a good point. This is a slower portal cycle, you feel like, in basketball, because there's some players and coaches waiting on April 7th to see what the heck happens here. And this is
when we say competitive balance, what are we meaning by that?
Well, I think it's kind of ironic that that's coming from Kirby Smart.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Exactly.
I mean, what does he mean by competitive balance?
Right, because under competitive balance, it doesn't feel like Toledo and Georgia, have the same resources.
Right, maybe he's referring to Ohio State's $20 million cap that they had this year. I don't know how much Georgia had, but but that's a bigger discussion.
Okay, so we're done.
Yes.
It was an okay update.
Good job, Billy. Good job.
Thanks, Cal.
There must be some ulterior motive to that comment.
Billy's been nice the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Did something for me, George. I got to be nicer to old Billy, old William.
Yeah. So this is all about you, isn't it?
No question.
I love it. After the break, the hardest working man in Nashville sports, Mike Organ from the Tennessean, will join us. A lot of stuff to get to. This is 94.9 The Fan.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling, they enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com. Manufacturing and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com.
Hey Preds fans, Max Hers in Dallas, where the Preds will conclude their 3-game road trip tomorrow night at 7 against the Stars. Radio pregame coverage begins tomorrow night at 6.
Smashville lives here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We are back. One of the things when we put together the segment with Mike Organ that we try to do is cover some stories from time to time that maybe aren't at the head of the class, but do get, important stuff out there. And that's one of the things Mike does really well. He joins us by phone. Mike, are you there?
I am here, George. Glad to be with you.
Okay. I'm going to plagiarize, which when I was in high school, that was a very serious offense. Not so much so anymore. I'm plagiarizing straight off your Twitter account. TSSAA tells Tennessee high school coaches one-time transfer bill, quote, must be defeated. For those who have not paid a ton of attention to this story, clue us in on what's going on.
Well, in the past it was difficult to transfer within the TSSAA system in high school. Basically, you had to prove hardship or that your family moved, a parent took a new job, new residence was established, and so on. Well, I'm afraid that like everything else, high school now has NIL. Well, high school now is making it easier to transfer, but trying to at least get ahead of the game and deem that it's a one-time transfer, and then it would become more difficult. And the coaches don't like it, and they were surprised that that it was passed, and so they're speaking up. And instead of just letting it happen, I think they're going to try to stop it before it gets enacted.
What are the mechanisms to try to stop it?
I didn't read. I didn't write that story. Tyler Palmeter did. He was at the Border Control. I know that it's been very. It has gone on and on for a while now, and I'm not sure what they can do, but I do know that nothing's set in stone in TSSAA. Yes, the Border Control, which is our 12 commissioners from across the state, 4 in each region, 4 from the east, 4 from the middle, and 4 from the west. They make that up, and they're usually principals or athletics directors from existing schools. And, you can appeal to them. And I think that's what it's so dire that's what the coaches feel like it's got to be done. That, is there any other way? Maybe you don't just completely shut it down and say no transfer. You go back to the old way, make it, but at least have some kind of a pathway that's more tolerable and more fair.
Mike, if I have the opinion that
the TSSAA basically covered its eyes for years while the private schools turned into the wild, wild west. Am I accurate? Am I being fair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, forever, we talked about recruiting being a violation, and this team built a powerhouse, and that team was cheated to get the best players to come from several counties over. The bottom line was that recruiting just was not illegal. And if they wanted to make recruiting illegal, they could have many times over, but they didn't want to restrict themselves in case something came up where they would like to do it. So it was never, a violation. So all anybody ever did was complain about it if you weren't one of the teams that was benefiting from it.
Okay, let's go to kind of story number 2 here. Belmont's women, under Bart Brooks, who I happen to think is a pretty darn good coach, are playing for a national title in about an hour and a half. Some people know it. A lot of people probably don't. Kind of fill in the gaps on that.
I've been impressed by the number of people who have I've covered this tournament since it started, because it started with Belmont playing MTSU at Belmont, which obviously is a game of high interest for our area, MTSU being one of the top programs in the country along with Belmont. And year in and year out, Belmont had been to the NCAA tournament 6 out of the previous 8 years and advanced to the second round twice. So Belmont is not a Cinderella story or a newcomer to this kind of success. And of course, everybody knows the success Rick Insel has had at MTSU. So I jumped on that first game, and I thought, okay, MTSU probably wins this game, and then I'm done with it. I'll turn it over to Cecil Joyce, our beat writer in Murfreesboro. Well, that wasn't what happened. Belmont beat MTSU convincingly, and I think it was about their 7th win in a row. And I thought, this is a pretty good team. And they turned around and won the next game at Northern Arizona, which had just knocked off Arizona. So now they're in the quarterfinals. And they win 2 more games. They win their quarterfinal game 95-40 over James Madison, and then advance to the semifinals and win. And today they're in the championship game. And Belmont's never won a national championship in any sport, so this is a big deal for them. Bigger than that, George, and we've talked about this on this show several times, especially with Kelly. In my opinion, the days of Cinderella stories in the NCAA tournament and big upsets are over. With NIL being what it is and the transfer portal, the very best players are going to be at the very best teams. So it's going to be chalk pretty much all the way through the NCAA tournament. That's what we've got this year, and I think that's what we're going to continue to have. So you're not going to have – you remember we had Florida Gulf Coast a couple of years ago, made it to the Sweet 16, and some other schools that have done that. You're not going to have that anymore. It's just not possible. Schools are going to get in the NCAA tournament because they have automatic bids from their conference, and then they're going to just get clobbered in the first round. Unfortunately, saw it with Lipscomb this year against Iowa State in men's basketball. So you got to ask yourself, which is better? And we used to have this conversation with Rick Byrd when Belmont continued to go to the NCAA tournament but couldn't get past the first round. Which is better, to get to the NCAA tournament and get beat badly in the first round, or go to the NIT, which was the case with Byrd, and advance and get to the quarterfinals or the semifinals? And I think that's what mid-majors and even some large schools are going to have to, and I don't want to say settle for, but shoot for. This is going to be kind of the new goal, is get in one of these smaller tournaments and try to make a splash there instead of just getting into the big tournament and getting beat right off handedly. And that's what Belmont went last year and lost in the second round to Penn State. And this year they're in the championship. And I would argue they'll make more of a splash by being in this championship game, win or lose, than they would have if they'd have gone to the NCAA tournament and gotten beat by 40 in the first game.
Yeah, you're on to something. initially there's the disappointment if you don't make the NCAA tournament. But if you get a win, let's say in the NIT, I always found that when you got to the second and the third round, players started getting into it more. Oh, we got a chance to go to Madison Square Garden. Let's go. But it was not right off the bat. You had to win a game first, and then all of a sudden there'd be a little more excitement.
Yeah, in most cases, it was disappointment. Sometimes, if you got an NIT, it was like, oh, wow, we got an NIT. We never thought we'd get an NCAA tournament, but we're glad we got an NIT. But in most cases, it was getting snubbed by the NCAA tournament and then getting in the NIT and then having to overcome that initial disappointment. You're right about that, George. And then when you won a game, and then you want to win another game, they're on television, they're on national television. You're getting exposure that you hadn't had all year. It's like, hey, this isn't so bad. We probably would have gotten beaten in the first round of the NCAA tournament. We would have been a 14, 15, or 16 seed against one of the best teams in the country. So maybe this isn't so bad. And Rick Byrd used to say that. He'd say, you take it year by year. And, if at the start of the year you think you've got an NCAA tournament team and it doesn't make it, then there's disappointment there. But if you have a team that develops throughout the year and then has a shot at the NCAA tournament, but ends up in the NIT, you're not so disappointed. And then, you have a team that makes it all the way. Like you said, Madison Square Garden, well, in this case, they've done something cool. This is the WBIT, which is the old women's WNIT. The NCAA bought it and renamed it. And they play the semifinals and the finals at Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is about as historic as you can get. Very special. Today's game will be on ESPN2, so everybody can watch it. And it's a really neat way to have to finish a season compared to just getting clobbered in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're playing in April. Kelly, say hello to Mike Organ. Try to behave.
Always do. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, Kelly. How are you?
I'm good, man. So we're talking about the NIT, and George brought up a good point yesterday. You look at the NIT, and hey, Chattanooga's a good basketball team, but George talked about it, myself and Billy talked about it. Like, there's nobody at the game. How can the NIT survive with all these other tournaments? Like, Fox has brought that Crown tournament, and he talked about Villanova and Colorado and Nebraska. You got the big name teams going out there because they got money, Arizona States of the world. How can the NIT survive with the way that they're going, Mike?
I think that's a great question. And I think that's why what happened with this women's tournament that we're talking about, the NCAA came in and bought the NIT. There is still a women's NIT. There's still a WeNIT, as we used to call it. And I don't know how it's doing financially. I would imagine it's struggling like the men's tournament is, I would imagine. So those two tournaments will have trouble. The WBIT won't, and the Crown, because they get the backing of a network and the backing of the NCAA. And as you know, the NCAA, as weak and rudderless as it is now, still has a lot of money, and it can, handle a tournament like this, picking up the tab for teams. I'm not sure about the details. I probably should have found this out on, how much expense the teams have to bear. For Belmont, it wouldn't be bad. Indianapolis is drivable. Of course, Northern Arizona wasn't, so they may have had to swallow that trip. But I think the NCAA helps in these because it has ownership. So I worry about the NIT, and I don't know anything about the WNIT. But, yeah, I do worry about the NIT because I saw the same thing you did with Chattanooga yesterday, that there's just nobody in the stands.
So let's go back to the TSSAA thing, and let me set this up by saying you talk to people and you talk to coaches, and nowadays coaches in college are talking about when they sit down with a family. When Coach Donnelly sat down with me and all that, we're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. Well, the parents are not even worried about it anymore. All they want to do is talk about money, and everything trickles down. Like what's happening in NFL or in pro sports trickles down from there to college, and then it goes to high school. But in my opinion, when we're doing this, now we're making, which I think reading, writing, and arithmetic, the old saying back in the day, that's more important than sports. But do you not think with all this that's going on, now we're starting to put, and sports is a huge part of our society, I understand that, but don't you think that we're putting too much on sports now? Because now you're giving millions of dollars to college kids. Now kids in high school are going to worry. And then, like if you're a professor at a college or something, and say you got a kid that's making $500,000 or $600,000, and then all of a sudden they flunk a class. Well, who's going to be in trouble? It's not the kid, because we're paying him. So now we're on the professor about passing him. Like, I just think that we're so upside down with this stuff, and we're making sports more important than education.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about with the professor, he's an employee of the university. Well, the definition of an employee for a university also fits the athlete. He's making more money than the professor's making. His salary is based on his performance, just like the professors. So the professor functioned and then impedes upon his ability to make money, which is what the Supreme Court said they didn't want to happen. They wanted every athlete to have the right to make as much money as possible. But then you've got another employee of the university stopping you. It's an interesting dynamic. And you talk about the high school kids, Kelly, the days of you being recruited by Boots Donnelly, that type of recruitment, I'm afraid it's on the way out. We had a meeting yesterday in our sports department at the Tennessean, and our high school guys spoke up, and they're the guys that are talking to these kids. And I was amazed to hear that really, unless you're a 5-star, you're not getting recruited that much. Now, we were talking basketball. So people say, well, there's always the Belmonts and the Lipscombs and the MTSUs of the world. They can step in now and take high school kids and develop them. Well, no, they can't. They got to try to keep up as much as the other schools, the bigger schools. So they're taking kids that are coming down from a Memphis or, a Tennessee or a Vanderbilt that didn't quite cut it, and they're giving them opportunities. And so they can't take a step back and wait and develop a 3-star guard out of high school. They can't take a year or 2 years to develop that kid. So the ones that are really getting left out are the not top, absolute top of the crop in high school. I mean, I'm talking about 4-star and 3-star athletes. Those are the ones that are missing out on being recruited, and I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know if they're going to go to junior college. I don't know if they're going to go to NCAA Division II, whatever. But there's just going to be this gap from high schools to colleges as this thing goes on, because eventually it's going to run out, and the players coming down and the players going up are going to run out, and they're going to have to go back to high schools. And who's going to go back to high schools? Is it going to be the big schools or the mid majors? It is a huge, when you jump into something using crisis management, which is what we're doing under the Supreme Court ruling and the NCAA's lack of doing anything for a long time in terms of paying athletes. It's crisis management, which is do first and ask questions later. And that's what we're doing right now. We're doing something to cure the symptom for right now, but the long term, we don't know where we're going with it.
Well, Mike, Jacoby Gillespie's a guy, you talk about Portal, who was at Belmont, went to Maryland, and now it looks like he'll be headed to Tennessee. Rumor has it. But we still don't know about Zakai Ziegler, Jemai Meshack, Jordan Gainey with this, April 7th deal coming down here, that they could still, you could see Ziegler still at Tennessee next year. Same thing with Meshack and maybe even Gainey as well. But on Tennessee, obviously we saw him go down to Houston and just look terrible. Was this year the best shot for Rick Barnes, or do you still see him being able to get Tennessee on the doorstep of a Final Four in years to come?
Billy, I'm going to be fair, and I'm not going to, go back on what I said last week. You asked me something about Tennessee last week, and I told you I thought this was Tennessee's best chance to get to the Final Four, and they've been in position where we thought they were going to get there before. And I did think that, but I had no idea they were capable of that kind of performance against Houston, a team that not only matched their defensive intensity. I thought Tennessee was the best defensive team in the country, but we found it differently. And I know Tennessee had a terrible day shooting, but at the same time, how much do we know of that? How much Houston's defense had to do with that? So I was wrong. This team was not in position to get to the Final Four. It got to the Elite Eight, but there was a huge jump from there going forward. I think Rick Barnes can continue to do that. He's proven since he's been at Tennessee that he can produce a Sweet 16 team pretty much any year and an Elite Eight team, probably more years than not, or at least half the time. And I think that going forward, he can continue to do that. But as far as getting to the next step, he's got to prove that he can do that. I think getting players back, like you mentioned, that'll play a big role in it. And if Tennessee is a have team instead of a have not, and if Tennessee can put together an NIL package better than what those guys can make on the next level, then there's a good chance they'll get them back.
Okay, I guess we're done with Mike Organ, the hardest working man in Nashville
Mike,
sports.
Stay safe out there tonight.
I'll stay safe. I'm covering the Belmont game, so I'll be indoors. So I won't be running the streets like George on most Wednesday nights. So hopefully I'll be safe tonight. And Kelly, I'll get you your newspaper to our meeting next Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Sure,
I'm all about it, Mike. Yeah,
by the
sounds
way,
good, man. I appreciate you doing that. I've told you that.
By the way, it's next Wednesday.
Yeah. It is Wednesday. You're right.
Okay,
I would have left it at the restaurant, Kelly. You'd have had to pick it up the next day. Thank you, George.
I'll see you next week, Mike.
Okay. See you guys.
After the break, since we've brought it up, you hear this every once in a while. Don't complain unless you got ideas to make it better. So let's put our thinking caps on during the break and let's solve the NIT problem.
Oh, wow. Oh,
You're
wow, George. Really?
You're on the clock, Kelly.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll come up with some riveting proposals. I can't wait to hear where this is going. This is 94.9, The Fan.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
The Nashville Cats are back for another fun season of football. The first home game is Saturday night, March 29th at 5 p.m. against the Albany Firebirds. Catch the live play-by-play action on 93.3 Totally Hits. For tickets, go to thenashvillecats.com. That's thenashvillecats.com.
This is my buddy Stan Harrison from Apple Collision Centers. Recently, you've been talking to me about companies that have a fleet of trucks and they're always in need of repairs.
That's right, George. We understand that nobody likes to deal with the auto body repair process. We try to simplify that at our 3 convenient locations. We work with all major insurance companies. We help to ease the stress of the auto body repair process. We're located in Old Hickory, Hendersonville, and Gallatin. If you need our services, please stop by and see us.
And how convenient that we have that in the background. Now, seriously, these are good folks. They do really good work. Give them a holler.
Where can you see a saber-toothed tiger rappel from the rafters? How about a catfish fly? The biggest stars in Music City. Not to mention hockey's hottest ticket. The Predators win! Only in Smashville. See your Nashville Predators all season long at Bridgestone Arena. Single game tickets are on sale now at NashvillePredators.com. Let's go, Preds!
Here in Nashville for the 7th Country Music Marathon and Half Marathon.
I think it says a lot about the city of Nashville, what it has to offer.
Rock and Roll Nashville isn't just a race. It's the best way to experience this iconic city. We're giving you more music, more fun, and more reasons to run with us. Get immersed in music culture and join us for this legendary tour of Nashville.
Your sports live here.
On ESPN 94.9.
And the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Okay, so about a 10-minute conversation here about the Uninvited tournament, the NIT. When Fox put together this deal out in Vegas, and they got all the big boys out of the big conferences to say, we're in, that left the NIT field with UC Irvine, Loyola of Illinois, UT Chattanooga, and North Texas. Don't get me wrong, some really good programs that you may not have seen at all this year. But for the general public that's not maybe a basketball junkie like me, the reaction to that Final Four was sort of a big snooze fest. So let's the three of us help solve the problem. Let's start with the venue. Because clearly, even though it's one of the historic places in the country, Hinkle Fieldhouse has not moved the needle. It hasn't attracted the Indianapolis basketball fan. So let's toss out as question number one. If you can't go back to Madison Square Garden, and by the way, I think they are, although I don't have proof of that, where would you move the NIT, the final rounds to?
Golly, man, that's where I was going to. I said, I was thinking to myself, it's got to go back to Madison Square Garden. That's where it's always been. It's got to go back. So if you can't, golly, George, I have no idea. Like maybe someplace in Atlanta, maybe.
Okay, here's one that came to mind for me. This is under the category of we're sitting in a room, we're trying to save the NIT, and we're just throwing stuff against the wall and see what sticks. What would be the reaction to Rupp Arena?
Too big.
That's a
too big.
If you can get people in, if you can get people in there, I think that's a good venue. I think that's a good spot. I think it needs to probably be in the central part of the country where you have East Coast and West Coast and Southern and Northern teams all meet together. I know Madison Square Garden was tough for people out in California, but maybe a place like Kansas City somewhere out there. I don't know. That's Rupp Arena would be good. I like it. I think it needs to go back to Madison Square Garden. I know we can't go there with your question, but that's where it started. It's something for people to play in Madison Square Garden because that's one of the most legendary places in our country.
How about this? And this could be out there, and I don't know how possible this could be, but wherever the Final Four is, come up with a deal with. And there's other arenas, like in San Antonio, book out the Spurs arena for a couple of nights out of the week. You come up with agreement. People are in town for the Final Four that week. A lot, later they get in Thursday, Friday, have the championship Thursday, and tickets typically aren't too expensive. You have it in the same location as the Final Four and serve as an event. So there's that, but also,
by the way, I think you're on to something.
That's
because
good, Billy.
There's very little about the change up of a gym you peel one sticker off that says NCAA championship, and you put that logo they had last night at Hinkle with that big old logo that went from, one side to the other. You're onto something, because there are basketball fans already there. So we've already achieved one possibility.
That's
the
good,
NCAA
Billy.
now owns the event. Now, let's think about this one. Fox stepped in, probably mostly to screw over ESPN, but they said to themselves, there's a window here. There's a window once we know who the Final Four is, starting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not a lot of college basketball. So they decided to throw that in there, and they went to Vegas. Vegas being a nice attraction. My guess is that a couple of people have snuck out of their rooms at curfew, and they've hit on 16. So Vegas was a good choice for this. But how about, since we're going to play hardball, how about the NIT saying, listen, the teams that win get some moolah?
Well, also,
there you go.
The teams that decline the invite get fined. Is that too much?
I don't know how you could do that.
I don't know how you do it unless your whole rank and file.
Well, you're saying
to it.
You're saying, hey, and maybe you even go as far as to say, if you accept the invite, you'll even get, because this is about money. Fox ponied up, and that's how they. So it's up to ESPN to pony up, and maybe that's an option to say, hey, if you accept it, you'll get this amount of money.
Well, the truth of it is the NIT is now owned by the NCAA, which is probably part of the problem.
Yeah.
But, okay, so we've thrown up a couple of ideas. Rupp Arena isn't a bad one. Yours is better, which is play it on Thursday, Sunday, around the Final Four.
Yeah.
You got basketball people around. There are people who can't get in to the Final Four that get charged, $900 a ticket.
Yeah.
You make the NIT a $15 ticket, be done with it.
I like it. That's Ave Maria coming to fruition right there, big
Yeah,
dog.
absolutely. But another thing would be,
I didn't expect that good an idea from you.
I didn't either.
Another thing would be, Indianapolis, how much of an attraction is that? I mean, it's having
It's
in
a
a city
basketball
like
state. Yeah.
Yeah, but having in a city like Nashville or even Charlotte, I mean, that would be like,
Nashville is now at a point where there's enough going on downtown that you could make that argument.
But
under the what cities would you consider? If you're not going Rupp Arena and you're not going to the site of the Final Four, Nashville, Tennessee's as good as any of them.
Yeah.
New Orleans is obviously one with Bourbon Street.
I mean, you market that. I mean, everything Nashville touches blows up. So I wouldn't, in a good way, as I say.
But now that we are paying the players and they're making money, then you got to fight fire with fire. And it feels like, to me, the NIT's got to put it out there. Winning team, your players are getting some moolah.
When is that going to happen in the NCAA tournament? I mean, is that ever going to come to fruition? Like, the kids are getting paid already, but will they ever make an incentive for that in the NCAA tournament? If you win the championship, you're going to get a little extra, just like the Super Bowl or the NBA, or I don't know if that'll ever happen, but we never thought that we would be here years ago where we're at right now.
So, Billy, answer the question you put up there.
Well, it doesn't look like Madison Square Garden will be the location anytime soon. At least what I'm hearing or reading. I don't know where you got that, but
I thought it was 2 years away and then they were going back.
I'm not seeing that. Now, might be somewhere else, but
okay. So our little experiment shockingly showed Billy having the very best idea out there.
That's some good
I
stuff,
had
Billy.
the second best idea, and Kelly brought nothing to the table.
Hey, I brought nothing. I couldn't think of anything, man. I thought Nashville, but like it's I don't know, man. I've always thought that it does, it was at Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's where guys wanted to go, but now I guess that's not the draw anymore. Guys want moolah,
It's that Catholic school education.
Yeah,
Don't
if
go
you
so
say
far,
so.
Billy.
No,
You had
no.
one good idea in 3 years. Relax.
After the break, we'll have stat of the day. Then Terry McCormick will join us. We'll spend the 4 o'clock hour repeating the obvious. It looks like Cam Ward's going to the Titans. Had you heard that, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah, so have
A
I.
bunch.
This is 94.9 The Fan.
Hey, Preds fans. Max Hers in Dallas, where the Preds will conclude their 3-game road trip tomorrow night at 7 against the Stars. Radio pregame coverage begins tomorrow night at 6.
Smashville lives here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Evan, Canty, and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
Russ might be able to bring back a catchphrase. So what about this one? New York Giants, energize the empire. Okay. Next one.
Are these supposed to be bad?
Bright lights, win city.
Nah. This is terrible.
New York Giants, take a bite. Big Apple.
That's brutal.
Evan, Canty, and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
Plain piece of grilled chicken. I'm good.
A plain piece of grilled chicken.
That's the perfect way to describe Evan Cohen. What is he?
A plain piece of grilled chicken.
That is Evan Cohen.
It is Evan
To a
Cohen.
T. I don't need you to try to do other things.
Don't sauce it up. We're really playing.
Just do your job.
Keep it steady.
Grilled chicken, rice, corn. Where do I sign up? Oh my gosh.
Unsportsmanlike. Weekday morning starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2.
The Nashville Cats are back for another fun season of football. The first home game is Saturday night, March 29th at 5 p.m. against the Albany Firebirds. Catch the live play-by-play action on 93.3 Totally Hits. For tickets, go to thenashvillecats.com. That's thenashvillecats.com.
Get your new Samsung appliances at Electronic Express and get a free 65-inch Samsung Smart TV. When you buy 2 or more qualifying Samsung appliances, you'll get a free 65-inch Samsung Smart TV. Upgrade your kitchen, laundry room, and home theater to create spaces you love. Want free shipping? We've got that. Expert service? We've got that. Up to 36 months free financing? We've got that too. Hurry, shop in-store or at electronicexpress.com today.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
Your sports live here. WBUZ HD3 Laverne. All around the world on the Game Nashville app. We are the Game Nashville Sports Network. ESPN 94.9 The Fan. A Cromwell media station.
It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
We're talking Titans with Terry McCormick coming up with first stat of the day, brought to you by Apple Collision Centers. You can find them in Old Hickory, Hendersonville, and Gallatin. Give them a call, 615-754-9800, or log on to their website. That's applecollisioncenters.com. All right, George, your Braves are 0-6. When was the last time that this happened?
Never.
Yeah, right.
Never. They've never been 0-6.
Yeah, they have.
When?
Guess.
I don't think it's ever happened.
George, this is in your wheelhouse. Let's go.
I don't think it's ever happened.
You're
Billy's
wrong.
saying it
We'll
did.
put it up there.
2016, they went 0-9 to start the season.
Oh, my God, you're right. And that was
Yes.
my buddy Jeff Francour's last season as an active player. They were not very good.
You didn't want to call out your buddy Jeff?
Oh, I mean that had absolutely nothing to do with it. 0-9. So Terry put up 1977. Let me tell you all about that, because I'm a graduating senior in high school, and I'm very excited. In mid to late April, the Braves are 8-5. And then, Kelly, do you know what happened at that point?
What happened?
Well, first of all, they lost initially 16 in a row.
Oh, gosh.
They fired their manager, Dave Bristol. And do you know who the interim manager was?
1977.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a well-known guy?
Yes, it is.
Would it be like Joe Torre or somebody?
I'll guarantee you Terry McCormick knows the answer. Let's bring him up to get things started. Terry, do you know the answer?
Was that the year that Ted Turner took over himself?
It is absolutely correct.
Really?
And so here's the story behind it that we now know. So he names himself the interim, but he waits until about 4:30 in the afternoon for a 6 o'clock game that night. I think it was in Pittsburgh. And so the commissioner's office probably was asleep or gone home or whatever. And so they did not react to it. And so Turner managed that night. And then the next morning, the commissioner got on the horn and said, "You get out of the dugout."
Oh, wow.
So officially, our man Theodore Ted Turner, his managerial record, much like this year's team, 0 for April, 0-1.
I was doing some research.
Spot, George.
Nice.
Ooh. Let me think about that. Who got
that? Wasn't the first go around for Bobby Cox, was it?
No, Bobby Cox was hired to start the 1978 season. He had been, I believe, the Yankees AAA manager in Syracuse. And so those were not great times. Billy's looking back through the mid-70s. One of those years in 75, they drew 534,000 in an 81-game home schedule. If you do the math on that, what that really says is you can't pay the damn light bill.
I was doing some research on Ted Turner.
Hold on a second. 534,000 divided by 81 looks like less than 6,500 a game. Well, isn't that special?
Nice.
Okay, what was your research, Billy?
Ted Turner went to high school at Macaulay in Chattanooga.
He did.
He did.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anytime they need money, they just call old Ted.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, they look like a college down there, brother, not a school, not a high school.
Same with Baylor.
And they play the Canadian national anthem.
Yes, because they've got a lot of Canadians on the team. That's for
they
sure.
Certainly do. So, Terry, was it really necessary to wear that nasty Yankee hat?
I'm wearing it in honor of the torpedo bats, George.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Are you good with that?
I'm fine with it.
You don't care about the good of the game. You're a lot like your former owner, Mr. Stein.
Like Al Davis, just win, baby.
Yeah.
Just win.
So, do you know much about these things?
Apparently, they are the wood emphasis, the density of the wood. It's the most dense at wherever that batter normally hits the ball. Like for Anthony Volpe, this is Jazz Chisholm, obviously. His sweet spot evidently is right there about 3 to 4 inches off the end of the bat. So that's why you see it's fatter there. Anthony Volpe, I think they said his was more around the label there. So his is thicker there. So, I mean, it makes sense. As long as it's legal, it makes sense that you would want the, sweet part of the bat to be in the spot where you hit the ball most.
By the way, Danny Evans will join us tomorrow, and we'll get his take on where that's going. Really? Did you have to wear that thing?
Hey, we're off to a decent start.
What is
despite
your
what
record?
happened last night?
What is your record?
3-1, 4-1, something like that.
We're 0-6.
0-6.
This just in.
Soon to be 0-7.
156 games left, George. You still got time to make it up.
Yeah, I hear you.
Not according to Danny. Danny says if you start off this bad, it ain't gonna get any better.
No, you don't know that. Let's
going off what he says.
Let's hold it down. You earlier was saying that Billy was dense, and yet he came up with the best NIT
Billy is pretty
idea.
dense. He had one idea in 3 years. That's great. Go
Yeah,
with it, Billy.
I'll mute you, Kelly.
So, Terry, the rumors out there that the Titans are going to draft Cam Ward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wherever did you hear that at, George?
I don't know. I just threw the grapevine. So has anything happened since last you came on this show that has you either more certain of that or less certain?
I think even though they're saying that, all options are open and that they're still going through the process, they're going to, there's reports out that they're going to Colorado's pro day and doing their due diligence there. At least some in the Titans party are doing that. But I think it's still Cam Ward or trade back for a ridiculous haul. And I don't know that the ridiculous haul is going to come about. I think it may be now more likely that if they need to recoup that third round pick that they gave away for L'Jarius Sneed, that it might mean a move down in the second round at pick number 35, move down to say 45 and pick that third round pick back up from somebody who wants to move up, for whatever player may be there at number 35.
Kelly, I'm sure you believe that the trip to Colorado is just an excuse to have a few.
No question. That's all they're doing, just going out there because they know they're not going to do that. They obviously like Cam Ward, and they're talking about him every day. Brian Callahan came out the other day and talked about, hey, we've done all we can do, and there's still a few things that we can do, but we have been around him enough. We like what we see. He's worked out good. His talking with him is good. So, yeah, it's a waste of time in my opinion. They're going out there just to make sure that they do their due diligence so the fans don't get on to them and saying, hey, well, what about him? Well, I don't know. But, yeah, Cam Ward's the guy from everything you hear.
How much of the draft process is – sorry, Terry, but how much of the draft process is a facade?
Oh, there's a lot of misdirection that goes on, Billy. There's a lot of, we like this guy or we don't like that guy. Every team does it. And, you kind of have to cut through all the, posturing and the semantics to try to find out exactly, what these teams are thinking. And, and it's at the very top of the draft where the Titans are, it's pretty easy most of the time. But where it gets tricky is, on down after those first couple of picks are made, because you remember last year, everybody had the Titans pegged taking Joe Alt at pick number 7. Well, the Chargers went and got him at number 5, and the Titans were forced to pivot, take J.C. Latham at number 7 and try to make a left tackle out of him. So really, you don't really know down in the draft until the draft starts to unfold, because you'll get teams that'll get antsy, want to come up for a guy, or you'll get teams that want to go down to pick up more picks. And, a lot of these teams that are, and it makes sense. If you're picking 5, 6, 7, 8 on down, you don't want to tip your hand because you don't want the team in front of you or somebody trading up to get in front of you to take the player that you really want. In the Titans situation, there really is no bluffing to do other than, somebody give us a haul for the number 1 pick if you want Cam Ward. Otherwise, they're taking him. So I think it's pretty cut and dried there. Now, they haven't come right out and said, hey, they're taking Cam Ward, the same way that the Bears kind of, made it known that they were taking Caleb Williams last year. But I think, barring something unforeseen happening, it's Cam Ward at number 1.
I'm going to assume that some team or teams have gotten on the phone, dialed up with their rotary phone and said, "Hey, Mr. Borgonzi, or do we need to speak to Brinker, who's in charge? Thank you very much." So do you think there is a team out there that has made them an offer for the first pick that they have had to say, we need to think about that?
I'd say probably not at this point. I think there have been teams that have called and inquired about it, no doubt. But I don't think they've gotten something concrete from anybody saying, we'll give you X, Y, and Z for this pick. I think if that's going to happen, I think it probably happens a little closer to draft time. I think it was 2 weeks before the draft when they traded out of number one back in 15 or 16 that they had 16, they had number one, 2016. I think it was about 2 weeks before. But at that point, though, it was a little different situation because I think everybody knew that they probably wanted to trade out of number one because they had the previous regime, Rustin Webster, and that front office staff had just drafted Marcus Mariota with the second pick. And then when John Robinson came in, they already had a young quarterback that they felt like that they were going to build around, and trading the pick made more sense because they didn't need a quarterback. This time around, they're not as sold on Will Levis, obviously. So picking a quarterback makes some sense unless somebody gives you enough that, you can trade out and fill multiple spots. And I'm talking multiple spots with premium talent, over multiple drafts, because this team is not Cam Ward away from being a playoff team.
No, they're not. So let's go on the assumption for a minute that it is going to be Cam Ward. Billy, let's put up the graphic where Terry then takes us through the next rounds after Cam Ward. Terry, kind of talk us through, you see the graphic, what it is you think they do rounds 2 through 5.
Yeah, I think, linebackers also a need of theirs. I think you can find starters at non-premium positions and depth players at premium positions with third-day picks. Not having that third-round pick right now is key because this team has so many holes that still have to be filled. They need starters at linebacker. They need starters on the edge. They need depth on the offensive line. They need starters at receiver. They need potentially a starter at quarterback if they're going to take Cam Ward. They need, another safety for depth. They need special teams help all over the place. There are not enough picks to fill all these needs, and not having that third rounder right now is got a chokehold kind of on their draft situation. So they're going to have to find a way to get a third round guy, some way or other with a trade or whatever. And I think if you want to start rebuilding this thing, what you do in rounds 2, 3, and 4 can be almost as important as what you do in round 1, because you can find guys who can start or guys who can develop into starters at different spots. And they certainly need a lot of that. I was told by some people that coming into this draft, they feel like they have 5 to 6 guys who are starter caliber on offense. That was before what they've done in free agency. So they probably have a few more now. But, when you go into an offseason and you only have half of a roster that you feel like that you're comfortable with as starters, then you got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, no kidding. So in recent years, and we've talked about this under the the thing of how did it get this bad? Well, it got this bad because between rounds 3 and through 7 over the last 5 to 8 years, they might as well have taken a siesta because they haven't gotten a damn thing done of any real substance in those rounds. And frankly, they haven't been all that great in the first round, as unfortunately we all know. So, Terry, we have a new regime. Honk, if you've heard that before. Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker. What gives you the most reason for hope that these two do not end up the way previous regimes have, where from round 3 on, they might as well have gone down to Houston, spent some time with Mrs. Steinbrenner?
Yes, I think probably what would give me the most optimism would be the fact that both Brinker and Borgonzi come from organizations with Green Bay and Kansas City where they have been able to develop talent, where they've been able to find guys in the mid to late rounds, where they've been able to be patient and develop a quarterback. The Packers with Jordan Love waiting before he played. The Chiefs even waiting a year with Patrick Mahomes before they unleashed him. So if they follow the strategies of the organizations that they came from, there's hope that in time this thing could turn around. But like you said, you have to hit, and you not only have to hit in round 1, which they haven't done a good job of over the last few years, but you got to hit in rounds 2 through 7 as well. And you go back to how this team got where it is, George. They've not had a quality draft since 2019. You go from 2020 through 2022, and you got barely anything to show for it. Best player you have from that 3-year stretch is Roger McCreary, who's a nickelback. And Roger McCreary was taken in the 2nd round of that draft, which is fine if he's an outside corner because that's a premium position. Most teams take a nickelback in the 4th or the 5th round. So that kind of tells you where you've been in terms of drafting through that span. 2023 looks a little bit better. You've got a few building blocks, maybe 2024. Jury's still out, but you've got some guys who can help you maybe. But now with a brand new regime in, you got to start hitting and you got to start getting players who make an impact. This team is woefully short and woefully thin on guys who can make plays, guys who with the ball in their hands make something good happen. They don't have very much of that. In fact, they hardly have any of it. Then on the defensive side of the ball, guys who change the game, guys who intercept the ball, guys who get the quarterback on the ground, guys who, recover fumbles and things like that, who are always around the football. When you don't have that kind of thing, it shows. And yeah, the defense did a fair job of masking that last year. But when you don't have a pass rush, you can't play defense in the National Football League consistently.
Okay, we're going to do this. We'll go to the break. Then Kelly and Terry will go at it. We'll open up the phone lines probably around 4:35. And at that point, I want some of your Titan draft questions, comments, whatever, for Terry McCormick. This is 94.9 The Fan.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
It's easy to say good things about the folks at Strike and Spare Family Fun Centers. Number one, I trust them with something that's near and dear to me, the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. But more importantly, I see the fun people have. They enjoy the bowling, they enjoy the camaraderie, and you will too. Come by any of their locations and get ready to have some fun.
If you are paying too much for your health insurance, you know what? You need to contact the folks at Pancoast Benefits. Pancoast works with businesses and individuals to tackle the high cost of health insurance. Whether you're a business owner, large or small, self-employed, between jobs, or over the age of 65 and in need of a Medicare plan, Pancoast can help. They make understanding your benefits less difficult and more personal. So check them out today, pancoastbenefits.com, or call them at 615-292-3400. Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com. Has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Hey, Preds fans, Max Hers in Dallas, where the Preds will conclude their 3-game road trip tomorrow night at 7 against the Stars. Radio pregame coverage begins tomorrow night at 6.
Smashville lives here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
It's the George Plaster Show.
Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Okay, we're talking Titans with Terry McCormick, Main Street Media, and TitanInsider.com. Kelly Holcomb will do the honors, and then around 4:35, we'll open up the phone lines, take some of your Titans questions for Terry. And so, Kelly, have at it.
Terry, I was just thinking when you guys were talking about all this, like, it certainly seems like Cam Ward is the guy. It truly does. But if they were to consider and somebody did call, what do you think it would take? And my, just going through my mind, I'm thinking, like, what if Jerry Jones and Sons call and say, hey, we'll give Dak Prescott up and we'll give some other picks up for that number 1 pick? How does something like that entice the Titans to do something like that? Or are we just Cam Ward? That's it. That's who we're going with.
Well, I think the only thing that could drive them off of it probably would be, recouping the 3rd round pick, a 1st round pick that's still high this year. I don't think they want to drop down to 10 or 11 or 12. I think they would probably have to stay somewhere in the top 5 or 6. I think it would probably require a 1st round pick in 2026 and maybe another fairly high pick in 2027. Now, as part of that, if the Cowboys dangled Dak Prescott, the Titans are not going to bite on that because, for one thing, Dak's cap hit is ridiculous. It's, over the moon. And I don't think that a rebuilding team like the Titans, even though Dak might offer some stability at the position for the short term, I don't think they're interested in, assuming a big contract that some other team, put out there. Now, if they want to throw CeeDee Lamb in, maybe they would listen, because that's a number 1 receiver who's still young in his career, but I doubt that happens. I think probably, it's going to take multiple 1st round picks and probably at least another 2nd round pick to get them to move off, or like I said, an impact player who can come in at a need position and play right away, who's still relatively young.
So last year, George talked at length about special teams, and the special teams was not good. So they go out and they hire John Fossil, which he came to training camp when I was with the Indianapolis Colts. His dad coached for a long time, and he is the new special teams coordinator. But I'm looking at this stuff, and I thought Ryan Stonehouse was really good as a punter. Obviously they didn't think that way, and then you got Nick Folk, who was really consistent. Maybe didn't have the strongest leg in the world, but they go to sign Joey Sly. Do you like those moves from them, special teams wise? Because the kickers are the important parts of the special teams.
Yeah, I'm a little more concerned about the Folk move, not re-signing him than I am Stonehouse. And here's why. Stonehouse had a big leg, and there's no doubt, that when you needed a missile, he could provide it. He could get off a 65-yard punt and not bat an eye. But I think part of the problem that they felt like was going on as they reevaluated special teams and what all went wrong last year under Colt Anderson was that the hang time wasn't consistently there, and neither was the directional punting. That Johnny Hecker, being a veteran, is going to bring a little bit more of that to the table. So they're willing to sacrifice, 4 or 5 yards of distance on your typical punt in order to have better hang time, in order to have better directional punting, in order to be able to, use a knuckleball punt or some of the things maybe that Stonehouse didn't necessarily have in his bag. I think also Hecker's going to bring some creativity because, the Rams used to use him all the time on trick plays and things like that. When's the last time you saw the Titans run any sort of trick play out of special teams of any sort? I think, Sly, to me, concerns me a little bit. He's got a big leg, but the whole reason Nick Folk was here was because he solved the revolving door that they had at kicker that had existed ever since they moved on from Ryan Suckup. And while, like you said, Folk didn't have the strongest leg in the world, he was accurate. He only missed 1 field goal all season. I'm a little concerned. And while Sly may be able to give you a 64-yard field goal that, can be a big play and, put points on the board maybe that somebody else couldn't do, I'm concerned that his accuracy maybe from inside 40, where Folk was absolutely money, is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, that concerns me too. I mean, you can't have enough good kickers, and there's only 32 of them in the world, which is just and he was so consistent. And then you go and you mess around with that. And I know he's getting older, but that kind of concerns me. So let me ask you this: of the free agents that this new group has signed, what are your thoughts on the free agents? Do you think they've upgraded the roster? Do you think there's guys that can come in and help right now? I saw they've got a couple of safeties. They've got some offensive linemen, the Zeitler guy and that. But what are your thoughts? Give me a grade on how you think this first off season has gone with these guys, and do you think these guys can have an impact?
Yeah, it's a different approach certainly than they went about last year when they made splash acquisitions like Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed in a trade. This is a lot different in the fact that they're bringing in serviceable guys, maybe guys that are not necessarily superstars. They're bringing them in more on a budget. The only guy that they really splurged for was Dan Moore from Pittsburgh, who's going to be penciled in at left tackle and shift J.C. Latham to the right. I like the signing of Zeitler. I think if this line gels, I think, that could be a big benefit to Cam Ward as he goes into his first season. I think he's certainly going to have an advantage that Will Levis never had, playing behind a better line potentially. Now, if it doesn't work out, then you're right back in the same situation. And Cam Ward's going to be running for his life the same way Levis did for his for the past year and a half. So to me, the offensive line signings are the ones that have to work out. The other things, I think you've added Xavier Woods, who's a solid safety who'll, fill in alongside of Bonnie Hooker and start there. He'll kind of have the Quandre Diggs role. And then you'll have a Draymond Jones, who's probably a little cheaper option. Certainly they didn't want to pay Harold Landry, the money that he was due, and so he was released, and New England scooped him up pretty quickly. But Draymond Jones is probably going to come close to filling that Danico Autry type of role, where he's kind of a hybrid, where he can play with his hand in the dirt or he can play standing up. And then Cody Barton, the guy they brought in to play linebacker, probably a little bit of an upgrade over Kenneth Murray. Maybe not the most athletic middle linebacker that's going to be on the field, but certainly kind of a more athletic upgrade over Jack Gibbons. So to me, they've made some decent moves. I don't think there's any blockbusters there that you say, hey, this guy's going to be an impact player. But I think these are guys who are going to hold the fort and fill holes so that they don't have to fill every hole with a draft pick.
So let me get back on this. The left tackle, they signed Dan Moore from Pittsburgh, the Steelers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he gave up the most sacks in the league. Am I correct about that?
He did have a little bit of a rough go. I think he was credited with giving up 12 sacks. And then you got these guys with PFF that do all these metrics and all. And some of those, they said, well, Russell Wilson held the ball too long or Justin Fields held the ball too long. So some of those they placed on the quarterback and not necessarily on him. I think the Titans, what they basically have said about him is there are some things there that can be cleaned up that they feel like they can do with minimal amount of change in his game. That sounds good, but that's also kind of what they sold us on Andre Dillard and, beforehand a couple of years ago, and it didn't work out with him. So we shall see. To me, the jury is out on the offensive line until I see it fixed.
So my question to that is this a case where they sign a guy that's got that's got some talent, that maybe has some potential, which Marcus Pollard told me a long time ago, potential means you're not very good right now. He gave up a lot, but he's still experienced and he played some. So are they going to go out and probably draft a left tackle? And maybe if this young man comes on as a left tackle, whoever that may be, they can slide him in there. And then you got Dan Moore as a starter or a backup. Is that kind of what you see?
Yeah, that's not out of the question at all, Kelly. I think if they had more draft picks, I think that would certainly be a viable option if they had that third round pick, because right now they need, if they're bent on taking Cam Ward at quarterback, that's one of your high profile positions off the board. They still need a receiver and an edge rusher. And most people are assuming that comes in round 2 and round 3 if you can get a third round pick. But the offensive tackle thing, certainly, if there's one on the board, it's a pretty deep draft for offensive linemen. It's possible that in the 3rd to 4th round that they could find somebody there that could be a developmental guy and maybe be groomed to be that future left tackle. That's not the ideal way to do it. Most teams like to do it with a 1st or 2nd round pick, but if you trust Bill Callahan that he can, develop guys and bring them along and, get them to buy into what he's selling, then that's certainly an option.
So, I've talked about it before, edge rusher, they got to get an edge rusher, and they're not going to get the Abdul Carter kid, obviously, if they're going to go after Cam Ward. So they're not going to get him. So, and I don't even know if you know this, but where do they – I mean, is this a draft that has a lot of those guys? Because it seems like everybody's an edge rusher nowadays. So is there some value that you can find later on in the draft, or a guy that you can find later on in the draft that would help you with that position?
There's some decent guys. I mean, there's been a lot of talk lately that James Pierce might fall out of the 1st round. If he's there at 35, I think you have to seriously consider taking a guy like that, because I think he could be a productive guy. Remember, Harold Landry was the 2nd round pick, so it's not out of the question that you can find a guy in the 2nd round. Beyond that, probably going to be somebody who's a one-trick pony or somebody that's going to need a lot of work to develop, because I don't think this draft is particularly deep at edge once you get past about round number 2.
So my last question is, I don't think we can know anything about the GM until after the draft, about all the new hirings and all these new guys. But so far, you just being around things, what do you think? How do you think that they have done so far with, organizational wise, with free agency? How do you see it going so far with this new regime?
Well, like I said, I think it's just a completely different strategy than what they have employed. I think this strategy that they're embarking upon is one of patience, one of building through the draft, trying to, replenish the roster and restock at a lot of different positions. And that's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year process before this team is really ready to declare itself a contender. Now, could it contend before that? Sure, it could. If Cam Ward comes in and he's Jaden Daniels-like and he puts the team on his back and takes them somewhere, absolutely they can go. If they get a haul for a number of picks that they have in the, for this number 1 pick, and they get 2 or 3 guys who are studs who come in and change the culture, and then all of a sudden behind a better offensive line, Will Levis is playing much better, yeah, they can improve. But I don't think that's things that they're necessarily banking on. I think they look at the way this roster is right now and the situation that they have inherited, and I think they see that this is probably at least a 2-year process and maybe longer before this thing is really back to where it needs to be.
And I'm sorry, I do have another one because I'm a quarterback. I understand where this is going, man, but I've been in the situation that Will Levis is in right now, and it's not fun. I don't wish that on anybody because he's hearing all this stuff. He had his opportunity, and he didn't make the most of it. I don't know if it was all his fault. Some of it was his fault. But, when you're in a situation like that, and when you're watching Sports Center and you're watching everything and everybody's talking about Cam Ward, where does he fall in this? And I know it seems like I ask you this every week, but I bring Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers up because this is the same situation. And if Will Levis comes on and plays well, then he's helping himself for future employment. But if they draft Cam Ward in the first round with the first pick, I mean, it's a road to an end. It's a means to an end for him. He's only going to have a year or two if he plays good and he gets this thing going, because at some point they're going to want Cam Ward. At some point, the fans are going to want Cam Ward. Everybody's going to want Cam Ward. So just what do you see with Will Levis?
Well, I see a guy that, wants to be good, that is willing to put in the work, a guy that, seems to, be a smart guy in terms of, looking at, how to, work on the board and, how to, knowing, hey, this is what I need to do here. The problem has been it hasn't always come through when he's on the field and been under center and had to execute the play. Now, whether that's, him freezing up or whether that's, poor protection or not a great, cast of characters catching the football, it's probably some of all of it. But I think Levis probably has to know he's on a short leash here. I mean, he could go in and demand a trade the minute they pick Cam Ward and say, get me out of here. But the truth is, in my opinion, his best bet is to stay here with another year in the system, go into camp with the mindset of working hard and showing this team and 31 other teams that you have the mindset of a competitor to compete. And even though you may not win this job, they may hand it to Cam Ward as the number 1 overall pick. You are ready to go when your number is called. And who knows? The Chiefs and the Packers both have had a history of slow playing top quarterback prospects. And now the guys they drafted weren't number 1 overall like Ward would be. But, if they decide they want to slow play it, then if you're Will Levis, you've got to jump on that opportunity and keep Cam Ward at bay for as long as possible.
Terry, is that shirt you're wearing what I think it is?
The plaster bowling shirt?
Yeah, let people see it because it's a beautiful shirt.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
I figured I'd do that to balance the Yankee hat.
Yeah, that's probably a good move. Okay, we're going to go to the phones after the break, and I'm going to challenge some of you because you've been a little slow in recent days. I want to hear from some red-blooded Americans who maybe have some Titan draft questions or comments or whatever about the Titans. But I want to hear from you on your way home. 615-553-0933. Again, 615-553-0933. Billy, what other way can they reach us?
Chat room's open on YouTube. Just fire away with your questions and comments there. It's to the right of the screen. You'll see it. If you're on a laptop or on a phone or however you're watching, you can also do it on Twitter and Facebook.
If you don't get involved, we'll send Gruff Dog to your home. That's a fate unlike any you've ever experienced before. This is 94.9 The Fan.
When I got my first car, my dad told me, keep the gas tank full and my number on speed dial. Now parents are telling their kids, save 615-242-9000 just in case. I'm Blair Durham. If you or someone you love is in a wreck, call us. We're here to get you the money you deserve.
The Nashville Cats are back for another fun season of football. The first home game is Saturday night, March 29th at 5 p.m. against the Albany Firebirds. Catch the live play-by-play action on 93.3 Totally Hits. For tickets, go to thenashvillecats.com. That's thenashvillecats.com.
This is my buddy Stan Harrison from Apple Collision Centers. Recently, you've been talking to me about companies that have a fleet of trucks and they're always in need of repairs.
That's right, George. We understand that nobody likes to deal with the auto body repair process. We try to simplify that at our 3 convenient locations. We work with all major insurance companies. We help to ease the stress of the auto body repair process. We're located in Old Hickory, Hendersonville, and Gallatin. If you need our services, please stop by and see us.
And how convenient that we have that in the background. Now, seriously, these are good folks. They do really good work. Give them a holler.
Here in Nashville for the 7th Country Music Marathon and Half Marathon. I think it says a lot about the city of Nashville, what it has to offer.
Rock and Roll Nashville isn't just a race. It's the best way to experience this iconic city. We're giving you more music, more fun, and more reasons to run with us. Get immersed in music culture and join us for this legendary tour of Nashville.
You know, starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
Here on ESPN 94.9 The Fan
and the Game Nashville Sports Network. It's the George Plaster Show. Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Okay. We're no longer living on a prayer. We got phone calls for Terry McCormick, Kelly Holcomb alongside. Let's go first to Nolensville. Tony, say hello to Terry.
Terry, hello and happy birthday.
Thanks, Tony, but my birthday's not for another 4 or 5 months.
Terry, I know that. This is Tony Benaza, and I wanted to bring that up because back when George and Watson started this show about 6 years ago, you recall I found out everybody's birthday, and we wished everybody a happy birthday.
I do remember.
Kelly and Billy, y'all didn't know this, but when Terry's birthday come around, George, tell him it seemed like we celebrated for a month, didn't we? Maybe 2 months.
Oh, my Lord. On and on and on. It was nauseating.
It went on for quite a while. Terry, I just wanted to touch base with you. That's why I said happy birthday to you.
Thanks, Tony.
Little fun there. A little reminiscent. That was, guys, believe it or not, that was 6 years ago, George and Terry. That's a long time already.
That is a long time ago.
With these players, Terry, I've been a loud proponent about the move last year of drafting Latham and making him a left tackle, and I thought that was a crazy move. I thought they should have gone out and found a left tackle some form of fashion, because what they had before they drafted Latham was minimum, and I thought he still should have stayed at right tackle, because the year before they drafted Skoronski, who was a left tackle all-conference player in the Big Ten, a running football conference, power football, but they made him a left guard. I just think, if and now they're in this quarterback situation. They've got this kicker situation that they're scrambling on now, I do believe. They might have addressed that. But it's like a buddy of mine said the other day. He said two things. He said they were going to go to Colorado and probably going to get Travis Hunter and try to convert him to a quarterback. And he said, and if not that, he said, then they're going to try to go get some lineman or linebacker, try to make him an edge rusher. Is all things open on the board for the Titans? Because seriously, there's a large group of fans, and I know you hear the noise, that we just don't think they know what the hell they really want to do over there or what they're doing. And with her, owner Ms. Adams, with her being away the way she is and hides behind the Tennessee Titan flame ball when controversy occurs, do they really know what they're doing and what direction they want to go in prioritizing their needs in that regards? And that's the main question. And then the number two question I've got for you, you're around the young players coming out, the seniors coming out through the draft, and when the younger players that are on the team, do you ever hear any of these players talking about the NIL that goes on in the portal in colleges right now? I'm going to hang up, let you get the next callers, but let you answer those questions. And like I say, happy birthday. Talk to you. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, Tony. To answer the first question, I think, Amy Adams Strunk has a lot of culpability in this organization's instability over the last several years. Now, did she draft Isaiah Wilson? No. Did she draft Caleb Farley? No. Did she trade for L'Jarius Sneed? No. She didn't do any of those things. But she didn't trade A.J. Brown either. But when she allowed her people to make those moves, and then when those moves backfired, she didn't stand behind them and continually just started picking them off one by one. And that does not contribute to fixing the job. That does not contribute to fixing this roster when there's constant turnover and people are going, well, if I draft Cam Ward and Cam Ward isn't what we think he ought to be, am I going to get fired 3 years from now? I think that's what everybody probably has to ask themselves in that building right now. So the instability has to stop. Whether Cam Ward works out or not, she has to give Mike Morganzi, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, and this staff time to put something together to give them a chance to compete, even if Cam Ward disappoints. Because look what happened in San Francisco when they drafted Trey Lance and he didn't work out. But they were smart enough that they came behind him with Brock Purdy and he did work out. And they went to a Super Bowl because of that. So you got to give people the chance to build something. And that's what's been severely lacking as part of the problem here over the last 3 to 4 years. when it got in the rut, I get that you're unhappy that it got in the rut and so many draft picks missed. Find out the reason why, but you don't have to fire somebody every single year when something goes wrong. Stability for the organization will probably play a big role in turning this thing around as much as almost any draft pick would.
Okay. He asked how much yapping goes on in the locker room about NIL transfer portal.
I haven't heard a lot of that. Most of these guys, they don't discuss the college game very often, or at least I don't hear them discuss it. I think, I've heard a couple of guys say, man, would have been, some of the older guys go, man, would have been nice to have that when I was at such and such university or whatever. I think where NIL is hurting the NFL is you're not seeing nearly the quality of picks and the depth in drafts that you did a couple of years ago. Whereas, you could find a sure starter in the third or fourth round a few years ago. You draft a guy in the third, fourth round, you expected him to come right in and compete pretty quickly to be a starter. Now, those may be more developmental guys, because a lot of those guys who could have come in and started, they get the evaluation of them. They say, oh, I can be drafted in the fourth round by the Titans, or I can stay at the University of Texas and make just as much money through NIL and maybe improve my draft stock and be a first or second round pick in a year or two.
I had to take a pay cut to go pro. Amazing.
Well, the pro game is going to suffer because. And I talked to a coach about this. It's going to suffer because these kids now, the NIL is one thing, but the transfer portal. So if you're sitting behind somebody and you think you're getting messed over by the coaches, you don't want to sit there and work for it. You face a little bit of adversity, and then you want to transfer to somewhere. And then once you go to the NFL because you got the talent, well, when something hits you in the face and now you got to compete with somebody, how are you going to handle that? And that's where I think the game is going to suffer years down the road.
No, you're exactly right, Kelly. I mean, you think about it. Will Levis went to two different schools, transferred out of Penn State when he didn't win the job there, went to Kentucky. Cam Ward is on his third school. Now, granted, his situation's a little bit different because he started out as a wing T quarterback and a 0-star recruit, kind of became self-made. But still, 3 schools in 5 years, is something that some teams may hold against him. Who knows?
Clay in Nashville, you are up next.
I know we're up against it, George, so I'll be fast. Good to talk to you again, Terry. The draft, I believe, is 3 weeks from tomorrow, the 24th. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's right.
So by, let's say, a little bit later than it is now on April the 2nd, April the 24th, say around, I don't know what time it starts, but so my question is Cam Ward the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans this coming football season?
You mean on day one?
I think they would like for him to be. I think he would certainly have the inside track, but they have stated this whole offseason, if Will Levis is on this roster, they said he would get the opportunity to compete. Now, what exactly does that mean? Is he going to get a legitimate opportunity to win the job if he's better in camp and they sit Cam Ward and, let Will Levis roll with it again? I don't know. Or is it going to be more of a Malik Willis versus Mason Rudolph competition like they had last year, where everybody knew that Mason Rudolph had the inside track to be the number 2 quarterback, and Malik Willis was basically being showcased to be moved on and get a draft pick for? It remains to be seen, but if they draft Cam Ward first overall, he's going to have every opportunity to show that he can be the guy from day one, especially if he's the first pick of the first round. If he was the 15th pick of the first round, might be a different story. But they're going to give him every opportunity to win the job. In other words, if Will Levis is going to remain the starter and be on this roster as QB1 for 2025, it's going to be one of 2 things. It's going to be Cam Ward didn't show them enough and is not advanced enough to have the job from day one, or it's going to be Will Levis far outshined him in every single capacity that was out there in training camp, preseason, and everything. More likely, it would be the former of those if Levis is going to be the guy.
Terry, as always, appreciate the visit. Yeah, go ahead, Clay.
Just be sure and tell Kelly that I came by and tried to meet him today. So show up next time, Kelly.
All right, Clay.
Kelly does not know how to get here.
Yes, I do.
Barely.
Yes, I do.
Terry, thank you as always.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Okay, Terry McCormick, Main Street Media and TitanInsider.com. Joining us on the show. After the break, we will go to Plaster Bet of the Day, which last night was a disaster. Thank you so much. This is 94.9 Fan.
Hey, Preds fans. Max Hers in Dallas, where the Preds will conclude their 3-game road trip tomorrow night at 7 against the Stars. Radio pregame coverage begins tomorrow night at 6.
Smashville lives here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
This week's Nashville's best deal comes from Bad Axe Throwing Nashville, downtown's largest axe throwing venue and your go-to spot for food, fun, and vibes. Enjoy panoramic views of the city, a killer soundtrack, craft cocktails from the full bar, and a Northwoods-inspired menu with a southern twist. Whether you're throwing axes or just throwing back drinks, Bad Axe has something for everyone. This week, score half off a $50 gift card, only while supplies last. Head to 949thefan.com/deals and grab yours now.
At Electronic Express, we've got the largest selection of TVs and unbeatable deals. Get a Samsung 85-inch smart TV for $799 or an LG 65-inch smart TV for just $399. Plus, buy more, save more on LG appliances and electronics. Save up to $1,000 when you bundle select LG TVs, audio, and appliances. Want free shipping? We've got that. Expert service? We've got that. Up to 36 months free financing? We've got that too. Hurry. Shop in store or at electronicexpress.com today.
It's the George Plaster Show.
Your sports live here on 94.9 The Fan.
Final segment on a Wednesday. It's time for Plaster's Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. We take a look at what happened last night. North Texas, -1.5. Half did not work out. UC Irvine got the win, and Chattanooga knocked off Loyola, who was favored by 3.5.
You know, North Texas had a big lead in the first half, and the whole thing crumbled by halftime. That was very bitter.
They did.
Tough to swallow.
It
They
is.
started
I
off
mean,
hot.
we're trying hard, and it's so far just not working. But there's tonight. And we've got one that we have isolated, and that is Boise State against Butler. And let me explain, Kelly, where I'm going with this one.
Okay.
Boise State, big kid in the middle, Tyson Degenhardt, really good player. Boise State was 25-10 on the year. Butler, 15-19. Advantage, Boise State. The question, is 7 the right number? I don't know. That's why they call it gambling.
Broncos, Bulldogs. Tune in tonight.
Be there. Aloha. That game, by the way, at 6 o'clock tonight on FS1. Tomorrow, Danny Evans will make his debut for the year, and we'll get into his thoughts of how the Braves offseason, how in the world did they think it was going to work when going into the season, even before they started 0-6, they felt like they were at least one starting pitcher, one reliever, and one outfielder short. Hopefully, Danny will have the answers. And then Mark Griffin, tomorrow during the 4 o'clock hour, the college basketball insiders with Lee Fowler and Ron Bargatze will be on Friday, and Lee will be at the Final Four in San Antonio. Kelly, until tomorrow, rest well.
Yes, sir. Be safe.
See ya. Everybody be safe. Even you, Billy.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Means a lot.
I know it does. Hit it.